Hello, welcome back to another episode of Breathe Darling, the podcast. I'm your host, Emily Riggs, and I am just too excited to welcome today's guest to the show. Melissa Woody is just a gem of a human being. If you ever have the chance to meet her, you will agree. And I loved the conversation that we got to have. I've had a couple other people listen to it and they're like, I love Melissa. How do I be her friend? So here we are sharing it with the masses. And here's a little bit about Melissa. She is a psychotherapist, somatic experiencing practitioner, and yoga teacher located in Asheville, North Carolina, with a profound appreciation for the human condition and belief in our inherent resilience. She combines her lived experience and clinical training and skills to help folks move from patterns of protection that may have been helpful and even kept us alive at one point, that don't serve us so well anymore and prevent us from actually living, to patterns of inner and interconnection. While she knows nervous system regulation is trendy right now, she's spent years training, studying, and applying how this can support us as it relates to recovery from chronic, in parentheses, mental and physical symptoms. She believes in the benefit of both somatic and cognitive based approaches to address the whole and produce best outcomes as it relates to her clients' goals. As a clinical social worker, she also approaches therapy through an intersectional sociocultural lens, recognizing that individuals' experiences are also shaped by a complex web of identities, systems, and power dynamics. She works with her clients as a collaborative guide to co-create an experience where no matter who you are or what you've gone through, you are invited to rediscover self-trust, confidence, and belief in your wholeness and own embodied wisdom. Y'all, if that bio doesn't say it all, I don't know what will. Melissa is a presence. She is full of grace and compassion, and she lives this. If you get the chance to head over to social media and follow her, she is one of my favorite follows. She is also one of my internet friends turned real life friends. Like we talk outside of the internet. Anyways, I'm so pumped for you all to listen to this conversation today. So let's get to it.
All right.
Hey girl, welcome to the podcast. So happy to have you.
Me too. I'm so happy to be here and actually be chatting with you in real life.
Oh my gosh.
Feels like it's like long overdue.
It absolutely is. And I'm sure I will already share this with people, but we are internet friends from
Yes.
the COVID days.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, I know her from it was definitely COVID times, maybe even like probably pre-COVID.
Maybe because that's when I was starting to dabble in some like therapy, Instagram kind of stuff. I was still in grad school and I was just
Yeah.
kind of exploring. And I think the algorithm put you in front of me, and I was like, I like this girl's vibe. Follow. Done.
I'm so glad you did because here we are in 2025 still connected.
I know. And I'm so glad we're able to connect in this way. Okay. So before we go off on our tangent that I'm sure we'll have many of, I would love for you to tell listeners who you are, what you're about. Again, I've given them a little bit of intro with your bio, but who are you, Melissa Woody, and what do you do? How do you answer that question in real life?
Yes, I love that question. I think a lot of times it's funny when people ask what I do. I don't love telling them that I'm a therapist, right? I
Yeah.
think many therapists were like, I make candles for a living. Uh, but I basically will just say I'm a therapist. They usually ask what kind, and I'm like mental health.
Uh-huh.
Or might get more specific, somatic therapist who works with adults, typically struggling with anxiety, trauma, stress management, chronic pain, chronic illness. Those are kind of my bread and butter. But yeah, just helping people reconnect to themselves and their bodies after stress or trauma. And you know how it is too. It's like honestly, my work is more about just being a person, being a human with people, as it is about any specific approach or modality. So it's more about creating that space where people can feel safe to just be who they are, be two humans in the room.
Yeah.
And th- and the other piece is that I live in Asheville, North Carolina, so there's that piece as well.
That's the where. Where is she? She's in
Mhm.
Asheville, North Carolina. She's in somatic psychotherapist. And at the same time, one of the things I love the most about you is this insistence, this like relentless reminder for me and anybody else of that humanity.
Yeah.
One of the things I
Can't lose it.
say, if I've heard you say it once, I've heard you say it 100 times. And it's that idea of like, I don't over identify with my job.
Yeah. That was a tough one for me to learn. And I'm really glad that you're asking this question.
Yeah.
Or kind of going in that direction about over identifying and what does that mean? What does that look like? Because I think it's something that we all do, if we've worked really, really hard we've spent a lot of time like training for a career. If we also love what we do, it's really easy to kind of like over identify with it in ways where we might start to take that role on in our day to day and our personal relationships or feel this pressure to be a certain way, which is also, like I said, like why I don't love saying what I do sometimes, because there's this expectation or assumption that we've got to be a certain way. And so I definitely felt that the first few years into my more clinical work. I also realized it was a quick road to burnout. And I did have to basically burn out.
How long have you been in practice?
Let's see. I started private practice in 2018.
Okay.
So 7 years. And so it was probably after COVID when I got really sick, when I was like, I've got to zoom out here. I've got to stop over identifying with my work, where I just felt like I was living it all the time. Remember, I'm like a whole ass person outside of being a therapist. That I'm some people's therapist, but I'm not everybody's therapist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
just kind of relearn what those boundaries and those lines were and needed to be for me.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had to burn out. I had to over identify to kind of like couple that.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, for sure. It's just something that I've been so grateful for. And you and I in a separate conversation have talked about, and I think you attributed it to a friend of yours who used the phrase "girl boss too close to the sun."
Yes, my friend Elizabeth, love her.
I love her. I don't even know if I love her because she's speaking a language that I think a lot of women, I don't know if it's our age or maybe just the cohort that I follow on social media as a therapist, but just like sort of this like all consuming, I need this to be my entire identity
or it's just like build this like empire from it. If you want to do that, great. But what's enough, right? And we have to just like decide that for ourselves.
It's enough. So for you, what came to be enough? Like what do you feel like when after you burnt out and you were like, I have got to course correct, I need to see change. This needs to look different and I need to define what's enough for me.
Yeah, honestly, a really big thing was that I stopped reading clinical self-help books. I stopped listening to the clinical podcast, like all in my downtime, feeling like I had to take all these trainings. So it was just sort of like, hey, this is enough. What you're doing is enough. And also, let's do one training at a time. Let's pick one thing. And really appreciating the one-on-one work that I do with clients and letting that be enough. Not feeling like I've got to like do retreats and groups, which I'd started to dabble in and I did really enjoy. But then I kind of had to, with my health, I needed to take a step back because it was obviously too much.
Yeah.
And so it was like, can we just let this be enough right here, right now? And then go from there. Let it change and evolve if it changes and evolves. If your interests change, if your capacity changes, which it has, but just not feeling like I had to consume this like clinical and therapy stuff all of the time outside of my work, my business hours.
Yes. I always joke that whatever I'm into becomes my entire personality.
Oh yeah, I know. I can be the same way.
We recently started to train for this competition. And we're doing it with my husband's cousin and his wife, who are basically our best friends. And as soon as they asked us to do it, we're like, yeah, that sounds fun. Like, let's do that. Like very, very chill. We are not in it to win it. We are in it to finish. But like challenging our bodies and that kind of thing. But I just very quickly realized I was all consumed with like researching this thing and like buying equipment for this thing. And like, I texted them.
It's on a life of its own.
Absolutely. I texted them fully aware. And I was like, I need you guys to know that this has become my entire personality, and I apologize in advance, right? And I think that's very much a young therapist thing to do. I
Yeah.
came at becoming a therapist later in life. Like I
Mm-hmm.
went back to school 10 years after I graduated from undergrad to become
Mm-hmm.
a therapist. And I don't care where you're at in life. I think because it's exciting and it's new and you're eager and you're passionate.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, it takes on a life of its own. And then all of a sudden, we're like, I don't know who I am.
Absolutely. And I think it's also recognizing, and I remember having this chat with my therapist when I was living in Wilmington. Am I taking these trainings or consuming information from a place of actual curiosity and interest? Or is it from this place of insecurity and imposter syndrome? And that's the thing is sometimes it might be a little bit of both. And that's okay too, right? Like we're not shaming
Mhm.
any of it because I do think that's an experience that we all have, but also we want to take a step back. And if it's always coming from this place of not enough, like I don't feel like enough or imposter syndrome or insecurity, then maybe we need to take a breath and spend a little bit of time there before we're going on to the next thing. And so I do. I try to check in when I am, engaging in a training or a workshop or anything clinical related that's taking up my time outside of actual work hours. Is it coming from a place of genuine curiosity and interest, or is it coming from somewhere else?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I'm so appreciative of with you is that even in your online presence, it's just evident that you've done and are doing your own work and you're living it out. I just think there's an
Thank you.
authenticity there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That
And I
means a
know
lot.
one of the questions I had for you is, this idea of like you talk about having a deep appreciation for the human condition. And I often hear you kind of calling out maybe our culture's tendency to pathologize
Yeah.
a person, meaning for anyone who's non-clinical, like maybe tease that out. But, you know,
Hmm.
the human condition, like what about your life has led you to have that appreciation? And yeah, what about your journey has kind of like led you to this place, not just as a person?
Yeah. I think it started early. Like, I think it's just part of my makeup,
Yeah.
honestly. Or if you're into astrology, part of my, if you look at my astrology, you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
But I've just always been curious about like why do we do what we do, how we keep going even when life is messy. I always joke that I had like my first existential crisis at 5 when I would like spiral about what it means to die.
I just want
Like,
to like put her little face and be like, oh, sweet baby.
right? It's like totally normal 5-year-old things. But, I also struggled a bit as a teenager, I think as like a deep thinker and a deep feeler,
Yeah. Yeah.
and often challenged the status quo, much to my parents and my mom's um, disapproval at times, which now she actually really appreciates about me, which is sweet. It's hard. It's hard when you have a teenager that's doing that. But I think now that she knows I've turned out okay, she's like, woo,
Okay.
all right.
Okay. She used that for good.
But yeah, exactly. But I was always just curious about spirituality, psychology, culture, philosophy, and just like the intersection of all of those things. It's just something I've always been interested in. And I just think there's something that's really, really human about connecting about witnessing both the struggle and the resilience, side by side of people, of humans. And I kind of feel like you can't help but appreciate our humanity when you let yourself get really curious about like who or what is in front of you. And that is my thoughts on that, in terms of just the human condition, right? The joy and the sorrow, the how we contain multitudes and life itself contains multitudes.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine that people often come to you in the struggle, right? You named like the struggle
Mhm.
and describe this idea of helping people shift from patterns of protection to patterns of connection. And so, like, I just imagine
Mhm.
they're coming to you in that struggle, just protected, armored. And I know we're going to get into some of the somatic sides. So I'm sure it's like just going to dovetail us there.
Yeah.
As you talk about that, what does that look like when people come to you to help them acknowledge and then
Mhm.
start to make
And then eventually appreciate, right? But yeah, I do. I think of it as kind of helping us shift from patterns of protection to more of these patterns of connection. So a lot of our protective patterns are invisible, right? Like because they've been with us for so long. If you're looking at third parts lens, right? Like these parts of us that have adapted from these places of protection that have been part of us for so long that, to the point where we might be very like merged with those parts. So things like pulling away when we feel overwhelmed, things like over explaining to avoid conflict or staying so busy that we don't have to feel. I think that's like a very common one in our culture, right? I like to say these are things that maybe kept us alive or they kept us in belonging or relationally safe, right? So they kept maybe these certain patterns that kept us alive, but they might keep us from fully living now, right? Kept us alive, but now keep us from fully living. Sort of the way I think of it. So shifting towards connection doesn't mean that these patterns totally disappear. To me, it's more about like being able to understand and appreciate the origins of the pattern, the function of these protective patterns. And so that might look like as we practice shifting more into connection, it might look like pausing before shutting down in a conversation, letting someone in on how we're really feeling, practicing vulnerability, choosing to reach out instead of withdrawing in these like accessible ways, right? Where it doesn't feel like too much. But it's these small moments where we start to feel safe enough to show up as ourselves. So that's sort of the way that I think of that little shift happening. But ultimately, I do think, and it might take time, but when we do start to not only understand the pattern but appreciate it, that helps the shift.
As soon as you said that word appreciate, like I said acknowledge, and then they won't be able to see this, but you leaned in and you said appreciate. And I was like, oh, we could end the podcast right now because she is dropping mics left and right. Yeah, like that appreciation, the compassion for ourselves, for what we
Mhm.
carried and how long we've carried it and what we had to do to survive. Sometimes that looks like things that our culture places a lot of shame on, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
depending on the extent of the trauma they've experienced with the severity and yeah, a lot of unraveling that shame
Yes.
story, that we've told ourselves.
Shame is tied up in a lot of it. It's overcoupled, with a lot. That's a term that we use there, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about somatic experiencing, but overcouplings and undercouplings and shame is an experience that is overcoupled with a lot of like behavior, which is part of what can keep us feeling so stuck in it too. So you're absolutely right about like the compassion, the self-compassion piece. To me, that's foundational, really to doing this work.
Perhaps what I think people resist the most.
Totally. They're like, what is this fluffy bullshit?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hear you, but let's talk about the neurobiology because there's a reason why, it's not just fluffy, right? Like it's a physiologically, like there is something that happens where we don't stay in that cycle of staying stuck where that shame keeps us in. That's where like psychoeducation can be so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like we're already there. So let's like go there fully. Can you talk about somatic experiencing, being a somatic practitioner? I just feel like along with the words nervous system regulation,
Yeah.
it's everywhere, right?
He's trendy.
She is trending and she's cute, but also she is complex. Let's like offer perhaps maybe more of that expert explanation. I don't want to like downplay what any other specialty is, maybe how they're approaching it, but I just feel like everywhere from exercise classes to coaches to other therapists, etc. And so I just would love, because I really respect your position on this and how you talk about it. Give us the lay of the land.
Yeah, thanks. And I really do think, yeah, it depends probably who you ask. You're going to get a slightly different elevator speech and also their discipline, where they're coming from. Because here's something that is maybe kind of unique to somatic experiencing is that it's not limited to clinical therapists. It is open to body workers. It's open to, I'm trying to think, I had people in my training that were dentists.
Dentist? That's
Yes.
cool.
That cool? Yes. I was like, we love that you're bringing trauma informed practice into your space. But basically, I mean, the majority you're going to get in those trainings are people with the clinical background. But That somatic experiencing is basically a body-based approach to healing stress and trauma. So instead of only talking about what happened, we pay attention to what's happening in the body, and what's happening in the nervous system, basically. But even, things like tension, breath, posture, or very subtle impulses. So I sometimes like to explain it like this. So imagine your nervous system it's like a car. When something stressful happens, you might slam on the brakes or you might floor the gas, right? So slamming the brakes, that's going to represent more parasympathetic. Flooring the gas is going to represent more of that sympathetic part of our nervous system. So most of the time, you eventually come back into cruising speed. We come back to our window of tolerance, if you will. But with trauma or prolonged or chronic stress, the system can get stuck in high gear or it can stall out. So that's what we think of as like nervous system dysregulation when we're stuck there. So somatic experiencing helps the body shift gears again. So you can move through life without feeling like you're always on the brake or you're always on the gas. Because if you're always on the brake or you're always on the gas, which again represents dysregulation, that is going to show up through chronic symptoms, whether it's physically or mental health related or both, oftentimes both.
Yeah. So would you say it's like showing up physically? Is this, and I know there's different camps of thought around this, chronic stress, impactive trauma that's unresolved. We're looking at like chronic illness.
Yeah. That's my story too.
Yeah. Like I'm sitting here with you. I know we bond over our spoons and all of that.
Autoimmune life.
Hey, but yeah, I just sit here and I think about, again, I only work with women in my practice, but out of over 30, at least 20 have some form of an autoimmune disease. All have it.
Really? Yeah. Yep. I think a lot of times people will be like, oh, it's like stress causes these things. And it's like, stress itself does not cause these things. Stress or prolonged stress or trauma can help create the right conditions for these underlying things to express themselves.
There it is.
And so think about that like over time and the wear and tear on our system, our nervous system over time. And as you know, it's like the nervous system is connected to all these other systems in our body, cardiovascular, digestive, even just might show up as even hormonal imbalances, and all of this stuff. So it's fascinating once you start to learn a little bit more about just the interplay between all of this and how it's really all related and the mind and body is not separate.
Yes. Okay. So talk more about that, because I think for a lot of people who are coming at therapy, people who make their way to my door, I utilize EMDR a lot, but the body, it's more of an experiential therapy. So it brings the body to it, meaning we're not just sitting, talking, and the session's over, right?
Right.
Very intentionally integrating.
Yes, integrate.
Awareness, appreciation. How, if somebody is considering going to a somatic experiencing practitioner, let's say, who's also a therapist, a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
What could they maybe expect? Like, what would kind of blending that with the nature of therapy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do actually, I do prefer saying that I take an integrative approach and that I'm more of an integrative therapist.
Same, girl.
Right. Because, I think sometimes, I think somatic is super fuzzy right now and even a little misused at times. But I also think that might kind of box me in a way where maybe people have a certain expectation. And it's like, no, like I'm still a therapist. I'm still a classically trained therapist.
Yeah.
Through and through, no matter what the modality is, what the approach is, I'm going to say what and every therapist would probably say, or at least I hope they would say, which is it's the relationship that's foundational, right? Number one.
Yeah.
So I'm always considering and centering the relationship with the client, with the person that I have in front of me. That is also historically going to be the best predictor of quote unquote success over even any modality that's used is the relationship. That felt sense of safety and attunement is incredibly important. So a session with me might look like some chit chat, right? Just being two humans
there you go,
hanging out, kind of relating to each other. But it also might look like noticing what's happening in your body, slowing things down so that we can do that. It might even look like an actual piece of somatic work, which would be the context would be different based off the person that I'm working with and what's coming up. what that might look like. But it might be exploring thoughts or certain patterns. It might be checking in with different parts of yourself using interrelationship focusing. So that's another modality that I've trained in. It's basically somatic parts work. It's not, it's a little different than IFS, internal family systems, but it's based off of Eugene Gendlin, who is the creator of focusing, is what it was called. And actually Peter Levine drew quite a bit of inspiration from Eugene Gendlin's work, and interrelationship focusing has as well. So yeah, it might also look like doing a little bit of parts work, something in me or part of me is feeling this way. I think when we can use that language too, it helps us not over identify with what we're feeling. We can create a little bit of space there so that we can be with that part of us, figure out like how can I support what's coming up for me. So it's all woven together, ways that are relevant to the person, to the session, so you can feel what's happening, you can understand it, begin to relate to yourself and others in a more helpful way, essentially.
Yeah. Can imagine for some people that idea of noticing, being more aware of their bodies could feel really overwhelming, because
Mm-hmm.
I can think of at least 20 different experiences, odd experiences that would lead one away from their body, right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't like to get quiet with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like to really notice how we feel. We live in a society that's largely detached from each other and
Yeah.
fears vulnerability at times. So you ask, well,
Yeah.
fine. What's under the surface,
Yeah.
right? Like two different
Mhm.
autoimmune diseases, a baby that's not sleeping, and
Yeah.
like the chronic stress of existing at the present moment in our country, just all of it. But I'm fine. And so
Yeah.
this idea of tapping into actually going on in the body may feel kind of scary for some.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we definitely go slow if that's the case, right? So the word in somatic experiencing that we use is for that is titration. Titrate.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to work with a little bit at a time so that we're not overwhelming the system, essentially. So how I make it kind of approachable or accessible and kind of ease into it, if you will, is, I try to keep it pretty simple, pretty grounded, pretty simple, because honestly, it is simple in a lot of ways. It's like, I always say it's kind of like simply complex, complexly simple.
Just enough both hands.
Exactly. So psychoeducation, of course, is going to be a part of it. Learning about the nervous system so that we can also like normalize part of what's happening in our body. Like, oh, that's part of what this is, right? So also so that we're not so afraid of it too.
Yeah.
So learning about the nervous system, polyvagal theory, I bring that in. Some people love it, but some people hate it. I've found it to be very helpful in my work with clients and in my own self-application, mapping the nervous system responses to the person, right? Because we don't all have the same protective patterns showing up. Many of us have pretty similar ones, but mapping our own nervous system responses and our regulating resources, the ones that we have that exist, and creating more of those. But oftentimes what I'll do is I'll actually start with a really simple exercise like exploratory orienting. I think you've probably seen me share about orienting before. But basically, if we are in a stress response, we're coming from more of a place of defensive orienting, like a defensive orienting response that's happening in the body. So we're more like focused on what's wrong, or whatever the perceived threat or danger is.
Yeah.
So with exploratory orienting, basically I'm inviting the person to simply look around the environment that we're in, taking it in, letting their eyes or their senses in general find and land on something that's neutral, pleasant, or interesting
Okay.
to them. And then I'll have them kind of check inside, see what they notice, right? And sometimes that's a hard place too. We're like, I don't know. So I might help with like, okay, these are maybe certain descriptive words that we might use, but checking inside, seeing what they notice, and then really kind of noting that what we're doing with exploratory orienting is we're taking in the presence of relative safety and the absence of threat, at least in that moment. So that is your system, literally having a felt sense experience of, even if there's so much going on in our head, or, we're feeling anxious about something or whatever, right now in this moment, I am practicing taking in the relative safety of the environment that I'm in right here and right now. So that's like a really simple exercise that I like to offer from the beginning with clients. So we're just kind of noticing what's happening in our body without judgment. I always tell people you can't do it wrong, because we can be our own worst critics for sure. But over time, those small observations help the nervous system feel safer and start to shift. And people will find it surprisingly accessible once they see it can be that simple. I had a client who oftentimes, like, homework I'll apply, or I'll suggest to people, or it's going to be more like, okay, we learned exploratory orienting this session. I want you to practice this
Yeah.
in your day to day. And I had this one client who, I think, when they came in the next week, I was checking in with them and I was like, oh yeah, like, were you able to intentionally practice that? And they were like, it's kind of annoying how helpful that was. I'm like, I know, right?
Love it. Oh, because it's the more and more I'm in practice, and the more I grow as a human being, I'm like, the simple isn't sexy, but it's effective.
Totally.
Like,
It gets to be simple. That's what I told people. I'm like,
it's to
humans love to overcomplicate things.
gosh, don't we? Like,
Yeah.
when I will often, in an effort to, like, encourage clients to practice attunement, a lot of times I'm working with women who are high achieving, high functioning to a detrimental degree, and are ignoring basic bodily cues, right?
Like,
Hunger,
yes.
thirst, need to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
ignoring even just overall, like, hygiene needs. Like, they do enough to put together, but it's like the onset of dry shampoo is actually the worst thing possible for them, because it's like, sister, let's shower.
I
Like,
know.
wash that hair.
I know. I did just recently find the best dry shampoo, though.
Let's link that in the show note.
So for anybody out there who is living on a prayer and dry shampoo.
And listen, I've got no shame for that, because, like,
Yeah.
this morning was the first time I washed my hair in a week. It's fine.
It looks,
right?
right.
Thank you, Mural. Yeah, but I couldn't know what dry shampoo that is. All of that to say, I think a lot of times when you encourage the simple thing, like, sometimes my homework is, hey, like, we just did some reprocessing with EMDR, and that is nervous system stimulation. I want you to check in with your body. What do you eat? And
Totally.
it's like, I'm hungry. Great, let's go have a snack. And that, while you're at it, just sip some water too. Go for a. Does that sound nice? Is moving your body sound nice, or do you need to lie down? Okay, right. And just the simple acts of being a person, right? It comes back to it's like being.
Totally. We're trying to do way too much all the time.
Get the same feedback all the time. I actually was doing some reprocessing recently with a client, and she was like, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And I'm like, see, like, we built this up to be this, like, crazy intense thing, and now it's some.
Right.
But she was like, let's do that again. That was great. That was helpful.
Oh, it's amazing.
I know, but I love your clients' feedback. Like, it's kind of annoying how helpful.
And I love having that rapport with my clients too, where they're like, that's annoying what you just said or what you just offered, but damn it, it helped, know? And I'm just like,
resonate as a client too, where you're like, yeah, I know it's really annoying when my therapist provides me with the same feedback and it works.
I know. Where I'm like, oh, all I had to do was slow down and let myself feel, and there was some emotion there, but I needed somebody to help support me and
yes, I think there's I've really pared back on who I follow on social media in terms of
good.
There for a while it was a boss girl thing and it was a comparison thing, and I was like,
totally.
I need who is going to help regulate me as a therapist. Like, who am I going to feel seen by and comforted by and calmed by and just relate to? And I can't remember what her title is. She's out of New Zealand and she does a lot of sort of like very quick educational videos on some of this simple nervous system. And she did one where the whole idea was just slow down. Do what slower.
I know who you're talking about.
Maybe I'll look her up and I'll throw her in the show notes. But that has stuck with me in such because I do everything fast. I brush my teeth fast, water fast. I literally was scarfing down food before I got on this Zoom call with you, which is why I was like, hey, I need 10 more minutes so I can slow down.
I always tell, right, I hear you, but it's so hard. But I always tell people, I'm like, if you think you've slowed down enough, slow down even more.
Like, even you say that, I felt my shoulders just like relax. And I was like, crap.
Well, it's tough because our society does not reward slowing down.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. This I said to you, but I'm just super curious because I feel like, and you describe yourself as operating under this intersectional sociocultural lens as a clinical social worker. So we are trained
yeah.
differently than maybe our counseling or marriage and family therapy counterparts. We all come to the clinical work a little bit differently. We still can do the same job, but I feel like as social workers, we just have a different lens that we're handed and we're asked to practice with. You just this idea of like our world does not operate. It does not set us up for slow living.
No.
It's for connection. How do you, I see you do this and talk about it. How do you live in resistance to that?
Yeah.
Resistance maybe too harsh language. I don't know.
No. I love some, I do, especially when it's resisting the status quo. Like I said, that has been in my blood since
from a young age.
It did. I mean, seriously. So I do have that and my favorite a little bit that I'm like, you're going to tell me to do something? I'm going to think about that first, and I'm probably going to not do it.
You're a way to get me to do the opposite.
Yeah. So right. But then there is this other piece to it where I will say it didn't come naturally to me. It doesn't come naturally to me. I don't know that it does to anybody in a Western capitalistic culture. It really took my body crashing. Unfortunately, it took me getting really sick. And I was having this conversation to really learn to slow down. I was having this conversation with a brilliant friend and colleague who I just absolutely adore, who I met in somatic experiencing training. And she's a therapist. She's up in Virginia. And we do voice text back and forth. And she and I were talking about it. It was really sweet. She was actually sharing with me. She was like, I feel like you've really helped me to slow down a little bit in my life. And you really like lived that by example. Like a lot of times when I voice text her, it's from one of my nature walks. I do that almost every day. And she's like, like you prioritize that. Like you don't overload yourself in your schedule with clients. And so as she was sharing that, I told her, I said, that means a lot to me. Thank you. And also, I have to acknowledge that it took my body crashing and breaking for me to really get this. And unfortunately, I think that's the case for many of us. That and if it's not physically our body, it might be in our life, like our relationships kind of falling apart, or something like that. And for me, my pattern was pedal to the metal. And it's funny, my mom called this out to me. She'd be like, sweetie, you burn the candle at both ends and then you crash. You get sick. Because I would. My body would literally, my immune system, I would have, I'd be sick in bed. And I was working at a nonprofit my first couple of years out of grad school. And I was also working in harm reduction. I was doing street outreach because I have a background in public health as well. And I absolutely adored that work. But I was taking on so much. And I was working 40 hours a week by Thursday evening. And then I was going out and socializing all weekend, which now I'm like, ooh, how was that doing? Now I'm way more introverted. But it was working for me until it wasn't. And it actually wasn't working for me is of course the irony.
How do you resist that pull that I just feel like it's drowning so many of us.
Yeah.
Myself included. Like I'm on the cusp of big change because I just can't.
Well, I was gonna say, and you're a new mother. That throws in a whole other piece of, oh gosh, just all the feeling like, well, there's just so much more on your plate. There is more on your plate. There is more responsibility and there's more to tend to, but there's also more expectation that culture puts on you, which is
pressure.
A whole other pressure, which is a whole other separate conversation, right? So I think it's up to us to really sort of like check in with like what's actually working for me, what's not, what are my values, right? Like, what are my values? Not what I think they should be or society tells me they should be, but what are my values? And how do I come back to that? Because that's also going to be where fulfillment lives. It's not outside. but it's in knowing what our values are and connecting and reconnecting with those. And so I know what those are for me. And so that's just what I come back to.
Yeah. Can I ask how would you describe just overarching your values? Like the ones that you come back to over and again.
Yeah. So, I mean, authenticity is one. Once had somebody in my life joke that I'm like allergic to inauthenticity, which again is probably why you and I vibe so well. Is because like, we are pretty authentic, real. But yeah, honesty, authenticity. What are some other values of mine? It's interesting because I feel like I have this like felt sense knowing of them, but then putting words to it is actually kind of hard. But yeah, also honoring my capacity. I don't fuck anymore. I don't. I just don't. And again, getting sick really taught me to not. Because I'm like, I don't have the luxury of pushing past my capacity all the time.
Yes.
Anymore. My capacity has greatly expanded from when things crashed in 2020 for me. And a lot of that has been through slowing down. So I would say slowing down a value. Like what word would we use?
And you're like pacing. You know what I mean? Like something, because obviously these values are going to be something different to each of us. And
absolutely.
I say to my clients, like I don't know that there's any wrong value. Meaning,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I know I walk clients often through this list. Brene Brown just has it on her website, a kind of cohesive resource of like 100 different values, and having clients kind of walk through just to learn to name them, like all of what's important. And it doesn't mean that you say that family is important to me, but wealth isn't. Like, neither of those are a problem. In the extreme, perhaps, right? I often kind of offer this idea that anything in the extreme is ineffective, so that idea of exploring our values can be really freeing and really grounding. And in a society where we're constantly connected, and I'm using finger quotes.
Yeah, air quotes. Yeah.
But we're lonelier than ever. We know ourselves less than we ever have before. Kind of like crumbling as a society when it comes to like morals and values, and just sort of that circling back to ourselves to be like you said, I broke. I lost myself a little bit there. And
sometimes we do. We have to lose ourselves to find ourselves, right?
But even just the sense of self, and then the permission that can come from knowing what you're about, and sort of almost having this really, I don't know, like a North Star or a home base to like circle back to. Okay, hang on a second. I feel myself kind of drifting away.
Yes. Or getting pulled away, right? Like again, our culture is gonna do that, So yeah, I was appreciating what you were saying about just even the connection piece, right? Like what does connection actually feel like to us? What does it look like for us? Because like you said, we're air quotes more connected than ever, but like, are we? Question mark? No. So what does actual connection look like and feel like?
Yeah.
It's such a big one.
But you're right, it can be such a different definition based on like where we live, what our life circumstances are like, whether we're introverted or extroverted, just like personality in general. I have plenty of friends who are like, connection looks like us each reading a different book, sitting in the same room. Others who like, I want to gab, I want to know about your life, I want to deep dive level 10, let's go. And other people, it's like, okay, I'm in a big group and everyone's enjoying themselves and everyone's taken care of and nourished, right? Like it just
that's so true.
Getting back to those values, getting back to ourselves, and so hard to do that when it's so noisy and chaotic.
Yeah.
And we're just like letting that in over and over. For me, it's every time I pick up my phone, it gets noisier, more chaotic, trying to learn how to distance myself from that while also benefit from being able to like order my groceries on my phone.
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk, but I hear you because I feel similarly. I really do. It's easy to get kind of sucked into the noise of it.
Yeah.
But I think knowing what our values are, coming back to those, connecting to those, reconnecting to those, are part of how we can, and many of us do, resist this culture that benefits from us being disconnected from ourselves and running ourselves ragged. I always say, great for capitalism, shitty for your nervous system, you know?
Come on. There it is. There it is.
And so that's what I want to prioritize. I want to prioritize what feels good for me, what is healthy for me, because that, in my opinion, is going to be part of what contributes to a more healthy, functioning collective society over time.
Yes. Yeah.
Taking care of ourselves.
Yes, taking care of ourselves and honoring the capacity that we have to do so, but then also like from the overflow, taking care of each other.
Mm.
And yeah, I've learned so much from you just about feeling not happening in isolation, like it happens in community. Like this whole idea of like, I'm gonna disappear off the grid and come back 6 months later and be like full and healthy and like okay. Let me know how that goes.
Right.
Right? And again, it kind of goes along with what's trendy in mental health and also labeling everyone else, labeling ourselves, and so much more simple than that. Again, it's in that quiet, in that calm, in like tapping into to go back to what you were talking about was that experiencing and the use of that with your clients and in your own life, just connection with self.
Yeah.
From there, it unfolds, right?
Yes. Yeah.
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 Well, you have got a couple of really cool things on the horizon that could prove to be, not could, will prove to be just these fabulous resources for people who are maybe wanting to explore this a little bit more. Tell us everything.
Well, I'm excited to tell you because truthfully, this is the first time I've had offerings more than one-on-one work in years partially because I just haven't had the capacity, for much more than that until recently. So two things. One is that I am co-leading a safe and sound protocol group, calling it the soft landing group. That's sort of the thing, which I'll get into that a little bit more. For those who aren't familiar with safe and sound protocol, it's basically filtered music that's specifically designed to stimulate the social engagement system in the nervous system. It was created in part by Stephen Porges, who's the kind of like father of polyvagal theory, if you will. So the SSP is specifically designed for that. And we're going to be offering a 6-week group in the fall, starting in October. And so all those details are on my website as far as like dates, costs, etc.
Link it all.
Yes, link in bio. And I'm really excited to be offering it with Alina, who's also a therapist and she's got somatic training and background. Hers is more in sensor motor psychotherapy, but she's awesome. And so when you experience that in a group, there's an added layer, right? So this is why I'm excited to be expanding back into a little bit of group work. But maybe seeing and hearing how others respond, learning about their own responses, because psychoeducation is going to be part of this group as well, of course, learning about the nervous system, mapping our own nervous system, polyvagal theory, et cetera. But and seeing how other people support themselves can create the sense of basically collective safety, right? That's kind of the point of the group, is for it to offer co-regulation in addition to the self-regulation support that the SSP offers. So it's a 6-week group. We wanted to keep it within a reasonable time frame where it didn't feel too overwhelming, because a lot of times these groups are offered as like 10-11 week groups, and that's just a really big time commitment. And people will still have access to the SSP music for up to like a month after the group, so it's not like you have to listen to it all within those 6 weeks. And so 6-week group in the evenings. I'm just super excited to step back into that and to be able to share with other people. And it was interesting because I will often try things before I offer them to people. I'm not going to just be like,
Yeah.
Like I think it's important to do our own work,
Totally.
to try the medicine ourselves before we're giving it out to other people, if you will. So when I was doing the SSP myself, it was really interesting because sometimes people have like kind of like noticeable big results, and sometimes it's a little more subtle. And I would say for me, it was more on the subtle side. However, I did notice that my focus and my attention was better. And it was during that time I also finally created this journal that should be released out into the world here soon, probably in the next couple of weeks. That I'm calling the soft landing journal. The idea is it's like, making your way back to the soft landing within yourself, right? And this journal, I was able to kind of finally streamline like these ideas that I had and start laying it out because I think I was feeling very overwhelmed by that for so long, which is why it took a while. Like where to begin, but basically I'm super excited about the way that it kind of came to life and unfolded. This journal is designed as a daily companion, basically for anybody looking to build connection with their mind and body. So the mind body connection, especially for folks who have chronic symptoms, health or mental health symptoms, but it's really for anybody. It's intended to be like a month long. So like a 4-week guide where each day there's a thematic practice that's offered, and then there are daily prompts, and these prompts are the same every day, right? Because we know that repetition is very important in building new pathways. So it's a different short thematic practice every day, and then these consistent prompts to basically strengthen our resilience through building interoceptive awareness, emotional awareness, self-compassion, and self-trust. And each week, the 4 week somatic practices kind of build off of each other, and because I felt like that was important too, right? It's not just like throwing a bunch of stuff at people. It's like there's a little bit of a structure to it in a way, where the first week is more about this sort of gentle arrival and grounded presence. Like, for example, that exploratory orienting practice, I think that's like the first one in there, right? So it's very simple.
Yeah.
Week 2 is more about supporting regulation and self-soothing. Week 3 is more about self-expression and vitality. And so those practices are tailored to that. And then week 4 is more on expanding capacity and building resilience. So it's really just like this culmination of a lot of the things that I've learned, that I've applied myself, that I support other people with. And yeah, I'm just really excited for it to be condensed into one resource.
I'm so jazzed. I can't even deal. Like the second that you posted about it, I was like, following just so I sign up because again, I just feel like you've been such a fount of wisdom and
That means so much.
your
Thank you.
presence is so grounding, Melissa. I just feel like the opportunity for anyone, and I hope that anyone listens to this goes to check this out because if you felt helped by Melissa at all, realize that the resources she's created are what has helped her
Yes.
be the grounded, connected, authentic human being that she is. And she look here, she's like putting it out there for you.
Thank you. That means so much. And of course, I am not grounded all the time. But
For sure. But like that's the point, right? That's the newest little hot take I'm seeing all around is just like the use of nervous system regulation, mindfulness, and being in the present moment, and as if that's the goal.
Yeah, right.
And kind of like you were alluding to this earlier, that like stress is the problem, anxiety is the problem. It's like
right.
Actually serve a very important function in our bodies. I would really like to feel anxious when the person driving next to me cuts into my lane. Yeah, because
Yes.
protection.
Yes, exactly.
Don't want to feel like that I'm laying on my couch.
Yes.
But to your credit, yeah, of course you're not grounded and connected all of the time. What's the life be life?
Yeah. That's what I like to say too. Yeah, life is gonna life. And we've got and nervous system regulation helps us respond to life, not just react to it, right?
But the point isn't to just be like chill zen baseline all the time. Like life is gonna happen, you're gonna respond to it. Do I have the tools? Am I equipped with the knowledge and attunement? Like, do I know myself well enough on how to get me back down to a spot? But the point is to be all the time. We are not monks staring. Okay.
Definitely not me. Couldn't be me. But that's exactly right. It's really about helping our body and mind move between states of stress and ease more fluidly.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not about totally eliminating stress. It's not about being calm all the time. Because like you said, it's not possible. It's about giving yourself the capacity to handle what comes up without being hijacked by it or by stress.
There it is. That's the clip, y'all. That's it. I love that.
It's like simple but hard.
Okay. If you, aside from these gorgeous resources that you're putting out into the world, like Safe and Sound Protocol Group, 6 weeks coming up this fall, Soft Landing Journal coming out here in a couple of weeks. If you had to encourage people outside of looking into those kind of more formal resources, to like walk away from listening to this and to go try something to support themselves, their mental health, their nervous system, what would it be? Like, what's kind of your consistent go-to when you're sort of ending a session with a client and you're like, hey, don't forget to dot dot dot.
I think you were actually kind of speaking to it earlier. This is something that also helps us rebuild trust in ourselves and in our body, especially too when we feel like our body we maybe feel even the grief of our body not working the way that, again, like if we have chronic pain, chronic illness, whatever. But rebuilding trust in ourselves, it starts small. Like you were saying, like when you have to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. When you're hungry, eat something. When you're thirsty, let yourself have some water. When somebody sends you an email or a text, don't respond right away, or somebody asks you to do something, you don't have to immediately say yes. You can say, let me get back to you on that, right?
Yeah.
Giving ourselves that sort of pause, right? And check in first. But yeah, like checking in with our body, acknowledging what feels safe, taking steps to honor our limits. That's another really big one, right? Even just like in tiny ways, but over time, consistently listening to ourselves and seeing our own wisdom play out helps like restore that foundational trust. And it's oftentimes in these really small, consistent ways. So, I think you really spoke to it earlier, when you were saying how you will kind of support people and being like, hey, notice what you need and then give yourself permission to do that, even if it's something as small as going to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom.
I mean, the number of times I do have this like tiny human that I'm just trying to keep alive at all times, but the number of times I get to the end of the day and I'm like, did I have waddle to do? Like, when was the last time I went to the bathroom? And then I sit with myself for a second and I'm like, oh, I have to pee right now. And that's potentially
Yeah.
the case for hours.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
Yeah. We get so used to overriding.
writing, yes, kind of ignoring, pressing, and just pushing through it. I think that is right before burnout. So just like keep pushing.
Yeah.
Through. And what was the word that you used?
Writing.
And then we're there. I'm like, how did I get here?
It's like because you've been constantly pushing past your limits and your capacity, and then so yeah, right. It's about kind of coming back, like being able to tune in what our actual capacity is. What does an actual yes feel like to me? What does an actual no feel like to me? And how often am I actually doing the opposite of that? It's again simple but hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Okay. I'm going to ask you our questions that I ask every guest.
Okay.
So these are meant to not necessarily be something you like have to think about a lot, but just kind of what comes up for you in the moment.
Okay.
Every guest gets asked these questions. First one being, what's one unexpected way changed over the last year?
Well, we were kind of talking about this before we started recording, but as some people may know, since I live in Asheville, we lived through Hurricane Helene, awful natural disaster that happened in the mountains, flooding, landslides. We were without water, running water for at least 3 weeks. We were without clean water for a couple months, and life was hard. We were fortunate that we did not have direct damage to our house, to our cars. Many people did, but life was really hard, and you do not come out of something like that unchanged. I saw how incredible our community was, how much everybody wanted to help each other. Things like that can really bring out the best and the worst in people, and I fortunately mostly saw the best. And how important it is to know your neighbors, because when shit hits the fan, you need to know your neighbors. And I have a close relationship now with some of them. And yeah, I learned so much about myself. I learned a lot about how resilient my body is, how resilient our community is. I learned also how much of a force, right? Like nature, because nature is one of my top values. Yeah. Like I love it so much. I'm out in it every day, but it can be destructive and unpredictable too. And so, yeah, you don't come out of that unchanged. It did change me. And, in addition to, just navigating to being in the trenches of infertility, you and I've talked about that as well. And you don't come out of something like that unchanged either. You learn a lot about yourself and your body and your needs. And so there's been a lot.
There's been a lot. It's been a big year. You got married this year. Like that's
Got married. I have an awesome partner to do all of this with, and like, that's the other thing too, right? Who do we surround ourselves with? I have amazing friends, amazing family, amazing partner, and we couldn't do any of it without our people.
yeah.
I know I couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Even as you were saying that, I was just thinking we walk through these things, these big things. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it's years down the road that I realize what's changed, how I'm different, how that, yeah. Yeah. So I know that so much of that with the hurricane is still kind of fresh. We were talking before we started
Yeah.
recording just about what still remains, right? And in terms of
Yeah.
like evidence that this happened, that you are around day in and day out. And
Mhm.
just was so grateful for how you very transparently let the rest of us in on the realities of
Yeah.
that for you. And was so grateful that you guys are okay and that life is
Yeah. Yeah.
some semblance of
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too. I mean, it was tough, but we're tough too.
Yeah.
That's resilience.
Oh, there it is. The struggle and the resilience. We always coming back
Yeah.
to it, right?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me, what is a surprising source of joy in your current season of life right now?
So we have been fostering kittens.
Yes, you have.
We've been fostering kittens. I unfortunately had another just really unexpected loss this year when Gira, my black kitty, passed away pretty unexpectedly, and it was pretty tragic the way it all went down. And anyway, sort of in honor of him, we have been fostering through a local black cat rescue. And these kittens, which I actually just got a text from the foster line, I'm about to go pick the three back up from that we had taken them back when we went on our week-long trip.
Oh,
And it's been so much fun to get to have these sweet little kittens that we're responsible for, not for their whole entire lives, which is also
sure.
kind of nice, but
Sure.
getting them ready to go to their forever homes and just getting to spend that time with them. I mean, that is little kittens I mean, unless you're allergic to them, and I feel for people who are, but gosh, that release of oxytocin that you get just from like getting to love on little baby creatures. And so that's been a fun source of joy for me this summer.
Yes. Yes. I know they're showing up on your stories often.
Yeah.
I'll be honest,
Like,
I am allergic to cats. I don't particularly like them in general, but
yeah,
it might convert me. I don't know, girl.
I get it. I get it. That's kind of I'm a cat person,
That's
and I always
I
have been. It's
love
funny.
Nick, a cat person.
Yes, my husband's a dog person, so it's been a little bit of an adjustment. Yeah, but
Yeah.
we have a dog. We have a wonderful dog too.
Yes. Yes. I love it. All right. How are you prioritizing living wholeheartedly these days? And
This
what
is
that you do, you know?
so life has been hard this past year. There's and I'm on a journey of prolonged uncertainty, as infertility is. And I have really tried to still be present with my life now and kind of reframe, some things too. And that has helped me to be able to hold how heavy that uncertainty can feel and the grief can feel, sometimes. But like we just took this amazing trip to Canada. We're fostering kittens, and I'm really trying to prioritize things that give me meaning and joy and purpose despite what feels really maybe looming or big or hard or challenging. And that to me, I guess, is part of the wholeheartedness. And I feel like, and I told myself, we're just going to really enjoy this summer. We're just going to enjoy it. And I have been. And I'm proud of myself for that and prioritizing that.
It's so good. And the last question is in the spirit of the podcast, right? Where you start, like the idea is, this is not a full story. It's just a chapter. So
Yeah.
we talked about living in this season, this year, this time of uncertainty. And sometimes we just need something help us breathe even just a little bit easier for just a moment, just an hour. What is that for you? What's helping you breathe a little easier?
For me, it's always getting outside, looking at the trees, touching grass, as they say.
Do you have any slippers?
I have my happy face slippers.
I love that. People are all about their grounding slippers. I'm like, I thought I could just use my feet. Like, what?
I do have these happy face slippers that the
Those
dog
make me
decided to
happy.
start chewing on, which is super rude. But yeah, for me, it's just stepping outside. It's looking up. It's that helps me keep perspective. Nature is going to make you feel small in like a very humbling way, and that's it for me. That's nature. I tried to do the city life, lasted about 8 months
Yeah.
because I was like, absolutely not. I need trees. I need nature,
Yeah.
and I'm in one of the best places in the world for that, in Asheville.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've got to get out there to see you. But
Anytime. We have a guest room, and I'm obsessed with it here.
I love that. Well, my friend, you're amazing. I love you.
I love
The
you.
girl crush is not evident to anybody. I'll say it. I got a crush on
Oh,
this girl. She's amazing. I adore you.
it's mutual.
Thank you for being on. Yes.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Breathe, Darling, the podcast. I truly hope that this episode with Melissa was a soft place to land for you. She is an incredible therapist, friend, mentor, practitioner, you name it, and is the real deal. I hope that you will go follow her over on Instagram, check out her stuff. She's got tons of education that is just really accessible no matter where you're at in your journey of healing and learning and practicing self-awareness. Be sure to jump over and both subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Jump on to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you are, and subscribe and leave us a review. We would love to be able to reach more people with the message of Breathe, Darling, which is really about having honest, grounded, connecting conversations that help us breathe a little easier. So in the meantime, friends, be sure to go and do that. Listen away to the other episodes that we have, and don't forget to breathe. Take care.